Westerner.
Okay. Yeah. St. Louis. The next time I'm going to go to St. Louis, I want to go for what's it called? Geekway to the West, I think it is.
Oh yeah, I've heard great things about that.
I hear it's great. It looks like we're live. Let me check real quick, make sure. I always just do crazy stuff, so I just start rambling once in a while to see if we're on. I'm gonna check real quick and do a refresher. I'm noticing that in all my videos, I have something in my hand to drink.
That's awesome. Got to keep up the consistency.
I guess so. I didn't notice that until recently. I think I was drinking milk in one video, and who knows. But all right, we'll go ahead and we'll get started. I'm going to cut out of the Facebook thing. But hey, everybody, it's Chris from the Charity Board Gamer. Tonight I'm here with Mallory Casperson. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you did.
Yes.
Hi.
Okay. But a while back, I did an interview with Carla and Knopp. Did I say it right? Carla and Knopp. It's Knopp, so I always make sure. But did an interview back, and we were talking about Lacuna Loft. And one of the things that we were interested about is that this was an organization that dealt with young adult cancer resources to help young adults through these things. And some kids don't know how to go about it. Some kids are in college, and some are just, they don't know how to approach it. Maybe they don't have the most supportive families. They don't know how to address certain situations that are going on with themselves. So that kind of inspired us to reach out and talk to Mallory. Mallory actually is the founder of Lacuna Loft. And we're going to talk a little bit about board games tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about herself and her own journey. And then we're also going to talk about Lacuna Loft, how it kind of came to be, and then how you specifically can help the organization. We've put in the description already the website, which is lacunaloft.org. You can actually go on there. There's a bunch of different things. There's things where maybe you're a cancer survivor, a patient, family and friends of somebody who's going through it, and maybe you just don't know how to approach it. There's some great resources on here. But I'm gonna let you say hi. So Mallory, say hi.
Thank you so much for having me. And big shout out to Carla. I met Carla through a good friend of mine from college when I was living in Huntsville, Alabama.
Oh my goodness.
I know, before they started Weird Giraffe Games, which is just the coolest thing ever. I've just been so excited whenever a new game of theirs comes out.
Oh, have you played Fire in the Library?
I haven't yet, but I do have mine. But I haven't opened it yet. I need to.
Carla, are you hearing that? She hasn't even opened her copy yet.
I know, but I know that they're going to be good. So I always, whenever they have a Kickstarter, I just go straight to it and I buy.
I love that. So let's talk about the board games first. What kind of got you involved in board games and just playing them? What kind of...
Actually, living down in Huntsville, I lived with a friend of a friend. I was going down for a summer because I had a fellowship through my graduate studies. I had a fellowship through NASA, and I was going down to Huntsville, and I needed a place to stay. And a friend of a friend was like, I know this guy, and he's really great, and he's trying to rent a room in his house. And so I moved in with a friend of a friend, and it ended up working out really, really well. And he loved board games. And so I kind of met his group of friends, which included this college friend of mine and his wife, I think girlfriend at the time. So, they played board games all the time, and I was living with him. And so I basically got hooked on that. And that was my introduction to Animal Crossing as well that first summer. And it was probably my first summer actually experiencing board games besides like Trouble and Monopoly and some of those like very standard
there's games other than Trouble and Monopoly. What is that about? I've never heard of those things.
So that was my first introduction to board games.
What's been a game that if you could play it right, Did you hear me on that?
Yes, I did. It just came in.
Okay. All right.
Agricola is.
Yeah, I don't know why I did that.
Agricola is probably my very favorite game of all time. I'm also a huge fan of the cooperative games, so like Pandemic and Castle Panic and some of those. I know, right? I keep trying to convince my husband to play it, and he says it's like too close to home right now. But I'm really bad at lying in games, and so I really prefer the ones where you're all working together.
So social deductions are not so like werewolf and stuff like that. You're not.
I'm not very good at them.
No?
Yeah, I mean I play. I'm always game, but yeah, I'm much better at the cooperative games.
My kids have a hard time with lying when it comes to games like that, because it's like we're told not to lie, and then in this game we're allowed to lie.
Yeah, exactly.
So. Yeah, no, our youngest did a stone cold lie to us one time in a game of Coup. Have you played Coup?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Yeah, so we got to the end, and it was just me and him, and I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell that he was lying. I'm like, he's been honest the whole time. So I'm like, okay, sure. He lied the whole way through. The whole game. He lied the whole... And that worries me, because he's 9 years old, so I'm like, oh my gosh, this kid is going to be evil. But
only when necessary.
The other reason why, like I said, oh yeah, he's crazy. He's what I consider my wild child. We've got 3. We've got just logical, very wise in thinking. He's very organized. Has a little bit more of the emotional side. The Jan Brady I'd consider. Between if you remember the Brady Bunch, where it's like, this isn't fair, or this isn't this way, and he's a good kid. And then there's Elijah, who just has this way with chaos. so he is all about disturbing the peace. If there is a disturbance in the force, it's him. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about was about your personal journey. Now, you dealt with cancer as a young adult, and which kind of inspired Lacuna Loft. Tell us about that journey. I'd like for everybody to be able to hear that, because this is going to be up here, and it's going to be on the website later, and I'd like people to be able to hear your journey, your story, what it was like for you to go through this, and why Lacuna Loft came to be.
Yeah,
I'm gonna take myself out of the street.
Okay. I'm all by myself now. So the second summer that I was living down in Huntsville, and playing lots of board games and doing some pretty cool research with NASA, I found out that I wasn't going to be able to come back to graduate school. And it was basically, it was a hard time. It was about 3 years after my cancer experience. And Lacuna Loft is kind of what came out of that. I was given the permission, I guess, from my now husband to kind of do whatever I wanted for a year after I was no longer in graduate school anymore, to try and, figure out what my next steps might be. And the one thing that I kept coming back to was how isolating cancer was, and how I'd never met another person who was diagnosed with cancer. So backing up a little bit, I was diagnosed when I was 24 and with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And it was just a couple months after my mom had passed away. She had also dealt with cancer, and I was very fortunate to be able to be one of her primary caregivers near the end of her life. And so when she passed away, I moved back up to school. I had been kind of doing some things at a distance, and I moved back up to school and was just trying to get back into the swing of things. And I was diagnosed with cancer myself. And it's just people in that young adult, technically in the oncology world, in the cancer world, young adult is considered 18 to 39. Lacuna Loft pushes that age group a little bit further out to 45. But if you think about that age group, there are lots of dynamic things that happen then. They're, they're in college, they're starting graduate school, they're starting new jobs, they're actively dating, finding partners, getting married, building up savings, all these buying houses, maybe having babies, all of these really big life changes happened during that time. And what doesn't often happen during that time is big health crises. And so almost none of my friends, none of my kind of peer group knew how to help me, how to kind of be supportive in my life. And I didn't know how to do that either. And it was just extremely isolating. And I never met another person my age who had been through cancer. And so when I was done with treatment, I kind of took a summer off to finish treatment and to kind of let my life go back to normal, which I'll put in quotation marks. And it just never happened. And I was back in graduate school. I was doing classes. I was doing research. I was traveling down to Huntsville during the summers and working with NASA. And my life just never went back to exactly, it just never fit back into exactly the hole that cancer had kind of left. And I just couldn't figure out why. And so when I started Lacuna Loft, I started a blog that focused on kind of the lifestyle aspect of dealing with cancer as a young adult, as a person under 40. And in that kind of had hundreds of conversations with other young survivors I'd never experienced before, because I'd never met someone my age who had been through cancer before this point. And what I realized was that there were so many overlapping issues, so many overlapping pain points, regardless of where someone was diagnosed or with what type of cancer they were diagnosed. And lots of other things. And so Lacuna Loft kind of started out of that. And like I said, my schooling is not at all in nonprofits. I'm an engineer by trade. I feel like I run a nonprofit as an engineer would, with a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of attention to tiny details and a lot of straight shooting kind of conversations. So that's kind of how Lacuna Loft came about. So I formed a board. Once it kind of turned out that this blog was the way that kind of my life was moving, after I'd left graduate school and kind of started having all these conversations, I formed a board and figured out how to establish the organization as a formal business structure, as a nonprofit, and kind of started building programs. We have about 12 programs running right now, which is a lot. It's a lot. And it's been very, very important from the get-go of the organization to offer programs in a manner that's as accessible as possible, because one of the issues that I had was that no one my age had been through cancer who I had, one-on-one experience with in my kind of day-to-day life. And there was nowhere that I could go to get support as a young adult, nowhere that I could go that would kind of give me age appropriate support. I could go to a support group, but everyone there was like 40 years older than me. And it's just not quite the same. Cancer is very traumatic regardless of the age that you experience it at, but it's different when a 20-something is diagnosed compared to when a 70-something is diagnosed. I was worried about my fertility and my very huge lack of savings and my entire life direction when I was no longer in graduate school and things like that. So there was definitely a lot to kind of figure out in a short amount of time, and nowhere geographically located nearby where I could start receiving that type of support. And so Lacuna Loft runs all of its programs, has from day one, online, either directly through our website or what I used to say through a video chat platform. But now everyone experiences this video chat platform now with the pandemic moving us all inside. So we use Zoom a lot to run programs. And we run a game night. Haven't figured out how to do that with an actual board game, but we do run Jackbox games through game nights. We've been doing that for about a year now. So just trying to kind of diversify the type of connection that we provide this group of young survivors, and just really giving them different ways of connecting to one another and creating a safe space in order to kind of validate one another's concerns, because that's really missing in the clinical setting when they're getting treatment and when they're getting kind of released into the rest of the world.
I just loved hearing all of that. Oh my gosh. I had to keep it just on you because it was too good. So how many years has this been going now? How long has Lacuna Loft been going now?
Yeah, we've had our nonprofit status for 5 years now. We
Wow.
just hit that. I know, pretty crazy. I'm not even sure how that happened. Yeah. And I started the organization about a year before that, but we've got our nonprofit. It took about a year to figure out what the org was and then to establish it as a nonprofit. And it's like an experiment. I run almost everything as an experiment the first time we do it, which I think is just necessary in life to just like treat it as a first time so that you can really figure out what works and give yourself permission to fail at something.
What's been like a program that you've run that may not be out of the norm to a lot of people? Like a lot of people think about cancer resources. What is one that stands out that maybe a lot of young adults don't know about that is different from what other people see when they look at cancer support?
Yeah.
What's something?
We run a lot of programs that are heavily focused in just the kind of like peer support realm, peer connection. So a lot of kind of normal things that you might do with a group of friends, but we create the safe space to do that with just other people who have experienced cancer, kind of letting that elephant in the room be the same for everyone, such that it can almost be kind of pushed to the side and kind of treated as an assumption, as opposed to something that makes that person different from everyone else. So we run creative art workshops where they sign up for an activity. We send them a supply box in the mail and they participate at the day and time on Zoom. They learn the craft or the tutorial of the activity, and then they take part in that all together as a group of young survivors. We have a writing workshop that lasts for 8 weeks, and the same group of survivors kind of go through that workshop together. They meet once a week and do like journaling. There's a specific method that they use called the Amherst Writers and Artists method, but it's basically like a journaling writing workshop. We do game nights, which are really informal. I mean, just like people are doing now, basically, that they're kind of not allowed to go out and see their group of friends. I've heard of people doing trivia nights. We have one of those kind of in the works. So basically, if you would want to do it with your group of friends, we also do it, but with a group of survivors. We do a book club that way. Yeah, lots of different stuff. We have about 12 programs running, and we don't actually right now run anything formally like a support group, for instance. It's all that kind of lower key stuff that's really focused on creating the safe space, getting those survivors together because they're not meeting one another in person.
Do you have anything like a testimony, maybe from one of the people that have used your program, anything of that nature? Maybe something where maybe a story where somebody maybe came to you after using the resources. I'd love to hear something about that as well, because I think that's encouraging to know already that you have this organization for young adults. But I also would love to hear just some of the great things that have come from it already.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things about being, kind of younger and dealing with cancer and not knowing anyone else who does is that it's a very isolating experience. And so our participants are often isolated geographically, meaning that they haven't met anyone in person who has also experienced cancer at around their same age. But they also might be even further geographically isolated. They might be rurally located. So we have a survivor who comes to all of our creative art workshops, and she lives on a farm in Texas. And so she's nowhere near a hospital where she might be able to experience a program there that's focused on young adults, or, might have created something that people could do outside of the hospital setting, but like providing that structure. So she comes to a bunch of our programs. We had a mom join in the last year who was diagnosed while she was pregnant. And so while she was doing treatment, she was at home with a brand new baby. And anyone with children knows that being home with a brand new baby is isolating in and of itself. So now she was home with a brand new baby and experiencing cancer and going through active treatment. And so she joined in a bunch of our programs because she didn't have to leave her home in order to go to these things. She could have the baby in her left arm and, have the computer by her right arm and take part in a program that way. So, and kind of everything in between. We have survivors join who just, I mean, think about being 35 years old and kind of like at the start of the prime of your career and you're diagnosed with a brain tumor. I mean, it feels like probably no one in their right mind would ever be diagnosed with a brain tumor at that age. You've probably been misdiagnosed several times because how could you have a brain tumor at 35? A survivor actually was talking to me this morning and I like wrote it down as she was speaking to me. So it's funny that you asked this question. And she said, I felt very isolated, very much like nobody knows what this is like. And I think that everyone can really think about a time in their lives when it just felt like whatever you were going through, no one could understand that. And the power of knowing that someone else has in fact experienced that and is, there to give you a loving word or a helping hand or a piece of advice or just listen to you complain is so powerful and kind of breaking down those barriers of isolation. And especially now that we're all stuck at home, even the very limited in-person options that this community of young survivors used to have has all been canceled. And so running online programs is really essential from that standpoint.
Now I have a very serious question. Now, not everybody survives. What has been something that maybe your organization has done to help the families, or maybe just send support to those people that are having to deal with it? I know cancer has hit our family, and it's we've lost loved ones from it. But I know it's got to be hard being over an organization where you know that there's a chance. What are some things that you all are doing to encourage those families who have lost someone or somebody that has lost a loved one? What are some things that you're currently doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm so sorry about your own experience too. I mean, it's kind of a universal thing, I think, that we all experience as humans. And it makes the work very hard as well. And maybe hard isn't the right word, because it really is a joy and an honor to be with these young people as they're facing cancer and as they're learning to, be a survivor as the years go on past a diagnosis. And we lose our program participants sometimes. We lose them in the middle of an 8-week program. And it's just, it's hard to make that easier. I think that Lacuna Loft just works very, very hard at creating a safe space for our participants as they kind of face that sort of loss altogether. And then we've also, I was a caregiver before I was a survivor, as a person in this age range. And some of my close friends in the young adult cancer community have faced that sort of situation as well, of being not only a person under the age of 40 who has experienced cancer, but also someone who has served as a caregiver. And it's been very important from day one that we be able to serve that group of people as well. So it's definitely a minority of the participants that we have in our programs, but our programs are always open to caregivers as well. And then like most nonprofits, we allow the opportunity to offer support for our programs and kind of have the kind of memorial attached to that funding for a specific person. So we have a spot on our website where we kind of hold those people up continually. But I mean, it's hard. I mean, dealing with grief and bereavement are topics that we try to keep active on our blog. We have a blog that publishes Monday through Friday, and I try to make sure that death and dying are things that we don't shy away from. So I guess that's another thing that we try to supply, but it's hard.
Yeah. What do you now in the process of creating the support groups and everything? Is there something that you look for, like certain likes, dislikes that maybe different people enjoy, so that way you pair them with somebody to help them kind of find, hey, maybe this person likes board games, maybe they can get into the board game thing with each other. Maybe this person might have served in the military or is serving in the military. Here's somebody that has served in the military that could be kind of like a support, kind of like that, not so much an accountability, but more along the lines of just somebody that has been in their shoes, so to speak. How do you kind of go through that pairing and putting them in those support groups?
Yeah, I'm writing down the name of the org so that I don't forget it. Yes, so we don't do any formal matching. There are two great organizations that I know of, Immerman's Angels and Cancer Hope Network, that do that. That. So they help with kind of peer mentorship of finding that, person that you can talk to who's been through a similar situation. Really, really great work that they do. We do some matching of survivors anecdotally, like if someone kind of crosses my inbox or crosses a program and I realize that, they're also from Shreveport, Massachusetts or whatever, and I just talked to someone who was from Shreveport, I'll check in with the first person and kind of see if they mind talking to the second person. So we do that kind of pairing, just kind of informally. Because like you said, it's really important to find someone who we can identify with and who has some things in common with us. And I'd also say that this group is just so craving connection with one another that it's really amazing how quickly they do it themselves. I was in a program just this morning and someone popped on and I was chatting with them as people kind of filed in to the Zoom meeting. And she said, "Oh, so-and-so is about to be here. I was just texting with her." And 8 weeks ago when we had a program, they were both brand new participants. They live on opposite sides of the country and they didn't know one another at all. And now they're texting with one another. I don't text with these people. I don't have their phone numbers, but they have done that with one another. It's really amazing to kind of watch people form these connections with the people who have similar interests, either directly from programs, or some of our programs are so informal. You just basically come into the Zoom window and start chatting. And so, likes and dislikes eventually come up and people kind of go from there and take it themselves. And with technology these days, it sounds it's cliche, but it's so true, that they find one another and they find ways of communicating. We actually had 2 survivors in a writing workshop one year, several years ago now, but they ended up being in the same neighborhood and they didn't know one another. Totally crazy.
That's really awesome.
I know.
That's really cool. Now, one other thing that I want to ask before we finish, how can we be able to support Lacuna Loft? What is a way that we can help support your organization? What is something that we can do, whether it be financially or promoting it, anything of that nature? Anybody that's watching this later, what is a way that we can support this great cause? And then what is something that you would like to say to young adults who are maybe watching this for the first time and maybe didn't know about these resources? What is something that you would like to say to encourage them and maybe encourage the families that are also dealing with this right now?
Yeah. So the first thing to help Lacuna Loft, if you know someone who's under 45 and has gone through cancer, is going through cancer, is caregiving for someone who's going through cancer, please push them our way. Maybe they don't find anything they like with us at lacunaloft.org. Everything's on our website. But if they're interested in something else, I can help find it for them. But we also have 12 programs running, so there's kind of a lot for everybody there. And then I don't know, we're a nonprofit with a tiny budget and a staff of 2. So all donations are appreciated. But we also have opportunities. Actually, this is a creative board game community. We love running creative programs. And so if there's something that you do that you think you could kind of run a tutorial about in a video chat type framework, oh my gosh, we would love to have you volunteer with us. We handle all the logistics, and it wouldn't take very long. But it's really fun having people come in and kind of share their passions. Yes. So that would be amazing. And what was the last question? Gosh, I mean, a million things I would love to say, but I think the biggest thing is just that it probably feels like you're very alone, but I promise that you're not. And Lacuna Loft is there as kind of a safe space to meet other people, either kind of at a distance through our blog and some of the other programs that happen just via blog post in kind of written word or through the recorded videos that we have. But we also have really chill and really fun ways of meeting other survivors, regardless of where you live, regardless of how much energy you have to leave your house once we finally can leave our houses. So we want to have something for you to take part in. So definitely check out lacunaloft.org and find those other people who understand what going through cancer as a young adult is like, because they are out there.
Very cool. Mallory, thank you very much for being on here. I appreciate the time you took. And I'm definitely up for teaching some board games and having fun with some.
That would be great.
So definitely that. But yeah, if you go, like I said, the link is actually in the description, lacunaloft.org. And actually at the top left of the screen, there is a donate button. So if you feel compelled to support a great cause, please do so. That's one of the big things that we talk about here on the Charity Board Gamer, is that if there's good that we can do and have fun and set aside all of our differences at the table to enjoy a game, why not do the same for a good cause? Well, Lacuna Loft is exactly that, a great cause that you can be a part of and be able to support. And for those of you who are dealing with cancer, who are young adults under the age of 45, under the age of 45, please take a look at this. This is great resources. It's got things about fertility. It's got stuff about just lifestyle, sex. I mean, it's a real topic that's on there that people are, hey, my body is feeling like this, but I want to feel like this. So how do I address these type of issues and subjects? So these are some serious topics, and Lacuna Loft has it on their website. So please go out there, donate, support, and I look forward to doing some board games with you.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me. This has been great.
It's my pleasure. Bye.
Bye.